I've been throwing the name Bella Thorne around a little bit with this like inside joke snide kind of situation. Rudy's raring to go. We're good.
I'm still ready to drag Bella Thorne. I've been
all right. So for people who don't know what's going on, why are we bringing up this random Disney Channel actress?
D-level celebrity.
Yeah, right. Essentially, the long and short of it is a Hollywood celebrity of minimal amounts of acclaim, let's say, made an OnlyFans account, overcharged and underdelivered, so didn't actually give people what they were promised. And then the amount of refunds that were being demanded crashed the app or the website and resulted in a bunch of other OnlyFans content creators not getting their paychecks on time, and is now changing how OnlyFans does business and the rules that it puts in place and the kinds of content you can create and what you can charge for it. So just a fiasco. So Rudy, how do you feel about this whole situation? This is kind of worst case scenario for a website that is dedicated to a safe and productive place for sex workers. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. First of all, I'm just annoyed by celebrities having OnlyFans accounts, period, because the vast majority of them don't post nudes anyway. And it's like, if you want to see a scantily clad celebrity, literally open a magazine. Like, any magazine. It's not like this is not the platform for celebrities with having semi-nude or lewd photos that are not just, nudes, that aren't explicitly just like, this is porn. Mm-hmm. It's not the place for it, I guess. And granted, you can post whatever you want, really, but it just is like, I don't know, it just makes me roll my eyes, because it's like, okay, this platform is some people's just their paycheck. It is their income. It is their source of revenue. It isn't just a thing they do on the side for funsies. And it's like when celebrities who already have plenty of other avenues of revenue use this site, and it just irritates me. It's like, you're not even posting nudes. Come on.
At least commit to the medium.
Yeah, if you're gonna do sex work, do sex work. Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I have to push back on that a little bit, because, pornography, sex work, I mean, these are really, really broad ideas that I think part of the value in OnlyFans is that they help to broaden them further. Right. I certainly hear where you're coming from, and I definitely don't want to dismiss the, I don't know, tragic results. I don't know if that's quite the right way to frame it, but I recognize the pain and suffering on the end of other performers. But, I want to be careful not to, I guess, be overly narrow about what constitutes porn.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I mean, there are definitely plenty of sexy photos out there that don't require complete nudity. I will say, in Bella Thorne's case, she specifically said, "Oh, this is a nude photo that you're going to pay $200 to see." And then
that's the bullshit.
And that's just a fucking lie. So that's just a scam. And I guess I don't want to say that, that I don't want to see celebrities involved in sex work, because hell, if we can just destigmatize that shit, let's do it. It's more kind of like, it feels like gentrification.
I was just gonna say, it feels like it's very similar in the way that I'm gonna move into this space as somebody who could move anywhere, but I choose this place. I'm gonna up all of the fees, the cost of living, the cost of doing business, and then I'll contribute by replacing all the traditional restaurants with my new spin on them. And we can argue about whether or not it's really Mexican food or really Thai food or whatever, but it's not the same, because it's going into the coffers of somebody who could have done anything, and not the people for whom this is their livelihood.
And not even just could have done anything, but already does something else. And again, it's like, do whatever you want. If you want to post semi-nude photos, if you want to post lingerie photos, well, I'm not going to stop you. If you want people to pay for them, I'm not going to stop you. Not going to shame you for it. It doesn't really matter who you are. You can do, whatever you want on whatever platform you want. But I will say, I will repeat again, in the specific instance with Bella Thorne, that was a fucking scam. Yeah. And she screwed over a lot of people.
Well, and not only that, but when she signed up for OnlyFans, well before the scam, the scandal, it was the biggest 24-hour performance that they'd ever seen. I mean, there were more people drawn to the site. It was making headlines. I mean, people were talking about this neighborhood. If we want to continue the gentrification metaphor, people were all of a sudden paying attention in a way that they hadn't before. And that could have been, or perhaps should have been, a meaningful opportunity for other performers. And the fact that she, moved in, took over the biggest, brightest house in the area, drew all of the attention, and then immediately used that opportunity to scam thousands of people, that's a fucking problem.
Yeah.
I can't highlight how big the perfect storm was, or the number of pieces that had to come together for her to be able to do, so much instant damage.
Mm-hmm. And I know that she seems, sorry. She's heard the people complaining and been like, okay, yeah. But I guess it doesn't really change the fact that technically we can't prove that OnlyFans, the way that they changed things as a direct result of that, but it seems, the timing is pretty uncanny, and they seem to be related. So, yeah. I mean, regardless, even if it didn't change anything about OnlyFans, if you say you're selling nudes, sell nudes. Don't lie. Like, it's literally just, yeah.
Yeah, like you said, it is a form of customer service, and it would be really weird to do that in any other industry. So why should it be acceptable here? I think a larger conversation, though, that this kind of not only it highlighted it certainly didn't jumpstart it, is that we've seen this kind of thing happen before, especially with Tumblr is one of the websites that comes to mind. Often sex workers will be a primary content creation demographic for certain websites, and use it to find clientele, and also to share information with each other and build community and make money. And then it goes mainstream and becomes quote unquote respectable. And then the sex workers are kicked off or relegated to a subsection, or, some restrictions are passed that make it more difficult to do what they do. And people have been waving the flag about this happening with OnlyFans for a while. So how does this conversation play into the Bella Thorne thing? And what are your thoughts about this? Why are sex workers considered less than respectable when, we can see scantily had celebrities on movie posters all over the country?
I mean, shit, you're asking the wrong person. I have no idea. To me, it's common sense that, like, there's really not a difference. But that isn't how the rest of the world perceives it, and that's something that we've been trying to change for a while, I feel like. And at the same time, there's always going to be pushbacks, especially from puritanical religions. Like, I've heard sexual immorality, that phrase, so many times growing up.
Trigger warning, please.
Yeah, sorry. I should have said trigger warning. Yeah. And it's just like, with no real explanation of why anything that is like no real explanation for why it's wrong, why there's anything wrong with it, why it's bad, why any of that shit is meaningful, besides outside of whatever meaning it means to that person. Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, it seems just so transparently obvious that, like, hey, if sex work were totally legal, totally destigmatized, we could regulate it a lot more. It'd be a lot safer for everyone. It wouldn't have to have negative stigmas associated with it because it would be perfectly safe. Well, at least as safe as any other job. I mean, there's always room for exploitation because people get exploited even with perfectly normal, legal, regulated jobs. But they wouldn't get any more exploited, I should say, than anybody else.
Right. And it's weird to me because a lot of these religions that kind of shy away from sex work and just sex positivity in general, the reason that I would have a problem with something I would consider sexual immorality, even using that word feels weird, but the only thing that I could equate to that would be something non-consensual, right? Like that would be the only thing that would be a problem for me. But that is not a problem for a lot of these religious groups, right? The consent portion doesn't even seem to come into play very often when talking about, well, why is this bad? It's never about, okay, well, are these people consenting? Are these people being respected as individuals and as adults and all of this? It's so strange to think back about the fact that I was one of those people and had that mindset, and I cannot for the life of me bridge that gap now. Like I do not understand why I thought the way I did.
Yeah, well, let's parse that out a little bit. And, with respect to anybody who's listening who, may find this content around rape and around lack of consent issues, I want to be mindful. But what we're talking about when we're talking about sexual assault is assault. We don't necessarily need to include the sexual component of it because we know that it is and should be illegal to touch somebody against their will, to strike somebody, to physically dominate somebody, to keep somebody against their will. So the sexual component is not necessary in order for it to be considered a crime or for it to be considered immoral, generally speaking. It's really just the sex that these religious views that I know we're generalizing to, but that are certainly ever present, are focused on. And there just is not a good explanation. There's not a good reason for it other than, the ulterior motives that, I might point people towards Dr. Ray's book, Sex and God, in particular, if they want to try and explore. But the reality is, whether we're talking about food or sex or something else, there's not a special need for religion to protect our sexuality, but there is an opportunity for religions to co-opt our sexuality. And I really feel like that's an important thing for us to be aware of as we're trying to navigate this kind of polluted world.
Oh, fully agree. There's this concept that sex is somehow more important than other bodily functions. Like it has this additional layer of importance, of some kind of like spiritual meaning. And on the one hand, like it's sweet to be like, oh, like sex is so important and I'm going to share it with this person and we're going to be like bonded in this special thing. And if that's how you want to view it, that's fine. But when you put that level of importance on a thing, you then become very touchy when other people don't treat it with the same reverence that you might. And if you don't have a good reason for that reverence, then it quickly becomes judgment and discrimination and prejudice against people who don't share your values there. So I think a large part of why sex work is so stigmatized, at least in the US, is because we're coming from a place of just assuming without really looking into it that sex is somehow different, somehow more important, somehow spiritually linked in some way. And so commodifying it or doing it in a way that is not considered like sacred is it gives us that ick factor. Like, what are you doing? This is supposed to be an important thing and you're not treating it as important as I do. And, treat sex as important as you want. Like that is your prerogative and you get to decide exactly how you see it. But when it comes to viewing other people and how they're living their lives, that's when we come into conflict there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just funny because sex is simultaneously extremely taboo and extremely sacred.
Yes,
it's at the same time.
It's like sex is the worst, dirtiest, most terrible thing you can ever do, and you should only do it with the one person you love more than anyone else.
But when you do it with that person, it is a gift. It is holy. It is your bond. It is everything. And it's just like, oh my
But if
God,
you don't like it, do it anyway. And also, it's not that big of a deal. And also, you shouldn't practice or have any help or assistance. Your body should just your body should just naturally know what to do. And if it doesn't work, don't worry about it. It's really, you don't need it anyway.
Yeah,